Today we're learning about domain and range of functions. So I'm going to start out by just defining what those are. So domain is the x values. Remember that can also be called input of a, I'm going to say relation because it could still have those even if it's not a function. All right, and then range are the y values, which are called also the outputs. Remember, a relation is a set of ordered pairs, points on a graph, things like that. All right, so we're going to pick a few ways, or we're going to have a few ways we're going to look at these today and be able to identify them. So if you're given either a set of ordered pairs, which looks like this, a mapping diagram, which was these, or just a table, which is that, you're going to simply list the x values for the domain and the y values for the range inside the brackets that look like this, okay? Typically, we're going to write those in numerical order, so like least to greatest. If it helps you, you can kind of mark them off of the list as you go. So for domain, so my domains, remember, that's x, range is y. So on my ordered pair, x comes first. So my domains are all of these first ones. In this case, they're already in numerical order. So I just list them out with a comma in between each one. Okay, now for the range, or the y, that will be the second number. And let's see, looks like they are almost in numerical. So I'm going to do 5, and this was I saying by if you want to mark them off as you go. So 5 is done. Next in numerical order, I would have 2 6s. You only need to write that once since it is the same number, okay? All right, next I would have 7, and lastly 8, and then close my bracket. Okay, go ahead and take a pause on the video for a minute, and I want you to try this one here. Okay, hopefully you're checking your answer now. You should have gotten for the domain in brackets -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. The -1 repeated, but make sure you only wrote that once. And then for the range, there was quite a bit repeating. So I had 0, 1, and 2. Okay, so writing the domain and range from a table is really similar. You're just going to make sure that you're looking at the right row. So for domain, they already listed them in numerical order. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now for the range, or the output, there is only 1. It's just 1 8, so I'll just write it like that. Okay, again, just take a pause on the video and try this one on your own. Okay, hopefully you're checking your answer here, and that's what you should have gotten, 8 for the domain and 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 for the range. All right, now a mapping diagram. If you remember from last lesson, the left side is the x values or the inputs, the right side is the y value or the outputs. So I'm just going to, and these ones are already usually numerical for you, and if they're repeated, it does not write it twice. So for my domain, I have 1, 2, 3. So 3 does occur twice, making it not a function, but I can still write it in here. All right, and then for the range, I have 8, 9, 10, 11. And just a reminder from last class, a function means the x value, each x value has only one y value. All right, so go ahead, take a pause, and try this one. Okay, hopefully you're checking your answer. You did have to move things around a little bit to get them in numerical order, but for x, you should have -1, 0, 3, 6, and 14. And for y, -5, -2, 0, and 8. Okay. All right, the graph part, make sure you might have to reread this, this part here quite a bit today because the graphs can be a little tricky. Just because there's a lot of different options on how you're writing it. So if points are given, write a list of the domain and range values inside brackets. So let's just start with that. So this one, these are just points, okay? The best option for you may be to write them as ordered pairs or in a table format, either way. So I'm going to do a table and do x, y. So like this point here is 0 for x, 2 for y. All right, then if I move to this point, that is 1, 1. This point is 2, 2, and then I also have 2, 3 on that x line. And then lastly, this point here will be 3, 3. Okay, now that you have those, it may be easier to write in your list. Another way to do it is simply look as you're writing it. So like, okay, domain I know is this way because that's my x. And I could say, okay, well this one is at 0. This point's at 1. These are both at 2, but I don't need to repeat it, so I'll just write it once. And then this one is at 3. So remember, domain measures like left to right. In this case, they were all right, so they're all positive. Right from the origin, I mean. Okay, and then second, I know that this going up and down measures my range. In this case, they're all positive, so they're going to be all going up. So here I can do, all right, well this, I can list them out from my table or from my points, either way. So if I do it from the graph, I see, all right, this point is up 2, but for this I want to do numerical, so you may start with like the bottom point. So that one only has a range of, or a y value of 1. Okay, next I have 2 points, they're at a height of 2, or up 2. And then I have 2 points that are at 3. And then let's just check that here. So 1 is listed, 2 is listed, 3 is listed. Okay, so just kind of to check yourself and make sure you have them listed out. All right, so that one's pretty similar to like just the list, the mapping diagram, etc. If there's a line or a segment on the graph though, so like these two here that we see, all right, you will need to write your answer to include the minimum value on the left and the maximum value on the right. So your answer is going to look like an ordered pair. So minimum on, and actually let's just write that down here. So I have an ordered pair. I'm going to do the minimum on the left, maximum on the right. All right. It says, so your answer is written like an ordered pair, but if there is a point at the location, it gets a bracket. So it could be like this instead of a parentheses. And you could have where like one side of your ordered pair is a bracket with your minimum and the other side maybe has an arrow going, so you get a parenthesis. All right, and this, like I said, this is a little bit tricky, so let's look. I'm still measuring domain and range, so I'm just going to label those real quick. So X is my domain. Oops, spelled that wrong. Okay, so let's start with that. So basically X is measuring how far left and right my graph goes. So this line here, all right, well, it's at 0 and it's going this way. It's covering like 1, 2, 3, etc. And it's also going to the left, -1, -2, -3, etc. So these arrows are what's really important here. Those are showing us that this graph keeps going. And hopefully you're realizing that it's going to get wider. It's going to get wider as it continues on. So really the domain is going to just keep extending left and right. So we're going to write that as there's no stopping point, there's really no starting point for it either. It kind of starts at 0, right? But then it just keeps going. So in this case, it's going to go to positive infinity and all the way left to negative infinity because it does not have a stopping point. So what you're looking at here, when you have the arrows, we're going to write this as an ordered pair with parentheses, okay? Because that shows it's not stopping, it's just going to continue on. So I'm going to write negative infinity would be my minimum on the left, and then positive infinity would be my maximum on the right, since I don't technically have a maximum. Okay, now let's look at the range. So remember, that's my up and down on the graph. So this does have a minimum here. So let's look at that first, our minimum. So where is the bottom of the graph? Well, it's right here, or the line, sorry, not the graph. The bottom is at 0, all right? So that is my minimum. Since that stops there, there's not an arrow continuing on, I'm going to put that as a bracket with my minimum of 0. And then, okay, well, if it has these arrows, it's going to keep going up. So even though these are on, like over here is on the left side of the graph, it's still a positive range, okay? Like that's 4, so is this, etc., okay? So that is going to be the maximum of positive infinity. Remember, because our graph didn't go at all down here in the negatives, so that's what's making it positive there. Okay, and our last one here, you may notice initially that it doesn't have the arrows on the line. So I'm looking at this line. All right, so the points, the endpoints there, I mean it does have a stopping point, so I'm going to be using brackets. So let's look at our domain, or our x, first. So that's how far left and right. So if it helps you kind of draw that down. Okay, well, as far left as it goes is -3. Since this is an endpoint, I want to do a bracket, comma, for make it look like an ordered pair, and then my maximum, so how far right does it go, is 3, +3. And that also has an endpoint, so I put a bracket. All right, now switching to the range, so how far up and down is it going? So let's look first at how far down. So it looks like the minimum is right here, which is 0. There is no arrow on that point, it's just a point here. So put a bracket. And then how far up does it go? So this line here is my maximum, which is 1, 2, 3. All right. So that's all for today. Make sure you're looking back, especially at this graphing section, because I know that can get a little tricky, a little confusing, all right? And you have a homework assignment today. Make sure you're completing that, looking over this as you go, and feel free to message me any questions. Have a good day.